Hi, this is Julie Stewart, and I am starting to record our foundation class Saturday morning. I'd like you to settle into your mat and find a comfortable place where you can be still for, say, 5 to 7 minutes. So maybe laying down on your back, or perhaps you would rather sit up and maybe sit up against a wall or even sit in an easy chair. I found an article that I would love to share with you from the Yoga Journal. It was an article written by Cindy Lee. Wish you were better able to accept hot and cold, noisy and silent. On a hot day last summer, I was teaching in an old brewery turned yoga studio. And it was sweltering outside, and there were no fans or air conditioning in the building. So we opened all the tiny windows that line the walls. And as I settled in to teach to a packed room, we heard a steady, loud hammering on the old roof right next door. It wasn't the kind of noisy machinery you'd hear in a big city like New York. It was just a couple of guys on the roof pounding away all morning. And as you can imagine, the room wasn't exactly feeling settled. While it would have been nice if those workers stopped banging, that isn't how life works, is it? It's hard to get everything lined up just right all the time. Everything arranged just the way we like it so that we can finally be relaxed and content. For years, I've listened to students explain why they can't do certain poses. The reasons are always essentially the same. My core is too weak, my hips too tight, and you get the point. The undertone is always hope that once the obstacle goes away, something better will take its place. Of course, when that better thing happens, there will be another elusive obstacle that is hypothetically making something else unattainable, and so on. The result, we end up full of craving and dissatisfaction rather than joy. Yes, your yoga practice does offer adjustments for refining your experience and making you feel a bit more comfy. For example, if you're feeling cold, you might practice Ujjayi Pranayama, the victorious breath. And if you're hot, you may try Shitali, a cooling breath. Pranayama instead. There are various modalities available to us, designed as yoga course corrections, so to speak. Yet, in the end, course correcting is not what practice is all about. Yoga is not an aspirin. It's not about making things fit us so that we can feel better. In fact, when we approach yoga that way, we actually create our own roller coaster. One of, ooh, I'm too cold, I'm too hot, my arms are too short, it's too noisy in here. We're always measuring, and all too frequently, nothing is just right. So then, what is our practice about? It's about getting familiar with ourselves, our minds, and our habits, including all the ways we habitually create our own discontent. Rather than trying to make ourselves more comfortable by adding props or wishing the hammering noise would stop or the weather were different, what if we tried to expand our comfort zones? I believe the first step toward doing this is recognizing how we create our own discomfort. Asana is a great method for this recognition because a lot of feelings, both physical and emotional, come up when we move our bodies. When we take interest in this idea, we can begin to get familiar with the difference between feelings and thoughts. Thoughts seduce us, tempting us to get hooked on the storyline about feelings and emotions that have already changed and dissolved. The hammering outside these windows is annoying, distracting, and threatens to ruin this yoga class. But will the hammering do all of that, really? If we can stay with our feelings and relax our habitual thought responses, we begin to get familiar with the flow, the vinyasa of our own experience. We can start to recognize that everything that arises also dissolves. Every noise and silence, sadness and delight, it's all impermanent. Our asana practice can help us simply be with whatever it is that comes up. And when we can do this, we can start to look inside ourselves for growth. We can trust the practice itself, the practice of witnessing our lives. Can we show up fully for this? Can we pay attention and allow ourselves to be more curious about the way things are, rather than focusing on how we may be able to manipulate the situation to fit our current desires? Instead of trying to reestablish our equilibrium from moment to moment, we may find that we can ride noise and silence, hot and cold, yes and no, and joy and sorrow, just as a ship in the ocean stays afloat by rolling with the waves. Instead of losing equilibrium and needing a course correction, we become nimble and curious and resilient. Our options expand, and as we learn to trust the patience and the practice, we learn to more fully trust ourselves. If we can relax our habitual thoughts, we begin to get familiar with the flow of our own experience, and we can start to look inside ourselves for growth.
So welcome everybody to this foundational class. Thank you for taking those few moments to listen to that reading, and I hope that it will help you throughout your practice. It is very much about, yoga is very much about finding stability and finding grace throughout the ups and downs, with trying to be present in the moment. That reading perhaps is something that you might listen to a few times and take it in and digest it and make it relevant to your approach to life, maybe your approach to yoga. I liked very much the way it talked about how yoga is not an aspirin, and that's a good reminder, because so many times we believe yoga will fix everything, will make you pain go away, will make your sorrows go away, will make your desires go away. But yoga is not about ridding yourself of all of these feelings and emotions. It's about teaching you how to be present in those moments and feeling the sadness and feeling the happiness, and instead of holding on to something and wanting it to be the way it was the day before, or wanting your body to be a certain way it was years ago. That's not what yoga is about. It is about just being with where you are today and moving with that, keeping that in mind, but also not allowing your fears to hold you back, or maybe a little bit of discomfort to keep you from trying to go a little further. So we never move to a place of pain, and we're speaking of asana, so it's not about moving into a place of pain, but it is about reaching to your fullest at that moment and being aware of the thoughts that come in that might stop you from going there. So anyway, let's get started, and let's come to our hands and knees. So if you've been sitting for a while or laying down on your back for a while, then slowly make your way to your hands and knees. And let's just start to work out our body. Like, again, maybe keeping that image throughout this practice. I love the image of the ship floating on the wave and just kind of going with it, with the ups and the downs and the wind and the rain and the sunshine and the clouds and the birds and the silence and the everything that would come along on your journey. So let's just kind of stay with that idea of we're floating in the ocean and we're on a very large protective boat with beautiful sails, and right now it's a gorgeous day and the birds are just flying all around us, and that's where we're going to stay in this practice. And if the storms come along the way, or perhaps the phone rings or your children scream out to you, then that's just part of the experience. So coming to your hands and knees, or in my case when the dog starts to bark. So lifting the sit bones, let your chest drop down, lift your gaze, lift your chin, inhale, then exhale round into the back, and inhale, soften. And exhale, round. And again, inhale, soften. And exhale, round, moving through your cat and cows, bending through the elbows. And back into your cat. Maybe rocking back and forth as you move through your cow and your cat. So make this what feels good to you. Adjust your hands and your knees. It's so that it feels good, so that you'll go further. So you'll experiment a little bit deeper into your practice. Stay with your breath. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Roll through the hips, lengthen through the spine. Release any tension in the body. And then coming back to all fours, shift your hips towards your wrist, open through your chest. So push away. So we don't want to sink down. We don't want to drop into the experience. We want to lift up out of the experience. And then draw your hips back to your heels. Maybe roll through your neck. Again, hips to wrist, chest open, hips back. And coming to your hands and knees. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to tuck the toes, lift the hips, and begin to pedal out through the heels, bending alternate knees, stretching out through the body. Maybe walk your feet a little closer to your hands, so you have a shortened down dog. And then maybe step your feet back towards the back of the mat and just hang. Let's hang on one side for a count of 3, 2, 1, and then change it out and bend. Say the right knee, extend through the left leg. Draw your chest closer to your thigh. Let your head go. Take 3 breaths. 1, 2, 3, and then gaze to your hands and slowly continue to walk your feet to your hands. Step your feet out a little bit wider and bend your knees. So you can use blocks. If you have blocks, that is fine. Bend your knees. Sometimes the blocks allows you to go deeper. Bend your knees towards your arms. Let your chest glue to your thighs and reach for your inner elbows. And just let your elbows drop, your head drop. Feel the weight equally in your feet. Take 3 breaths here for 1, 2, 3. Now just release your arms and just hanging like a rag doll. Take 3 breaths here for 1, 2, 3. And gently bend your knees a little deeper and trace your hands up your legs and roll your shoulders up and back, forward and back several times. And then coming into Samastitihi, equal standing. So draw your chin in towards your chest. See if you can touch your chin to your chest. And then roll your chin to your right shoulder. And then roll it back to center. And roll to your left shoulder. And then back to center. Inhale to the right. Then exhale to center. Inhale to the left. And exhale to center. And gently inhale, lift your chin up. Now taking your right ear to your right shoulder, use your left hand to gently encourage the right ear to the right shoulder. Just noticing how do you feel. Take a breath here. And then coming back up and change it out so the right hand supports. Maybe push your head into your hand slightly as you encourage the ear to the shoulder, maybe stretching the side body as well for a breath. And coming back up, let's try that again. You can even keep your hands back behind your head, or I like to extend my right arm down my right leg. Push into the right foot, push into the left foot. Again, counter the pose by pushing your head into your hand, and keep working this breath for 3 breaths. 1, 2, 3. And then lift yourself up. Either hand stay to either side of your ears, or you're taking your left hand down the left leg. Push into your feet, so push it, ground into the left foot, ground into the right foot. Stretch through the right side body. Draw the elbow to the sky. Take your ear to your left shoulder. Push your head back into your hand and take 3 breaths for 1, 2, 3, and slowly lift yourself up. Now reach your arms up towards the sky, gaze up, look up. Bring your palms together, interlace your palms, and just reach up. So maybe keep your chin drawn in slightly and roll your hips back slightly. Tuck your tail under towards your heels gently, not an extreme tilt, just a very gentle tilting of the tailbone to lift the hips up higher. And then lengthen through your arms. There's a lot going on here. It may not look like it. And then take your arms back slightly and lift your ribs off of your hips and lengthen gently. Draw your chin to your chest, lengthen a little further. Maybe reach your hands gently towards one side or the other, stretching it out. Coming back to center. Lengthen and then exhale to the other side. Stretch it out and then come back up. And then just roll your wrist as you make your way back to your standing Samastitihi, standing at the front of the mat. So from here we're going to move through some gentle sun salutation A's. This is a day of being gentle on ourselves and just feeling into our body, noticing the thoughts that come along with these feelings. Just notice them. Try not to follow the storyline of your thoughts. Just notice your thoughts. It's sometimes rather fascinating. And then inhale, reach your arms up, gaze to your thumbs, lift your chin, lift your gaze, and exhale, gently come forward. Maybe trace your hands down your legs. Stop where you need to stop and inhale, half lift. Exhale, bend your knees so that you can bring your palms down and come into your high plank position and just feel your plank. How does this feel? If you push away down through the hands, down through the balls of the feet, if you lift your kneecaps, contract your quads, draw your belly in, what happens when you push your palms towards your toes and your toes to your palms? And then take one more breath here. Just drop your knees down now and take the tops of the feet down. This is a gentle sun salutation. Work your elbows by your rib cage so you keep the length in the spine as you gradually come down to the ground. Let's come all the way down this time. Keep your hands by your chest or step them back slightly and push down through your hands to lift your chest up into cobra. And then lower back down. And just lift to our hands and knees. And shift our hips back to our heels. And take a breath here for 3 breaths. 1, 2, 3. And roll yourself to your hands and knees. Tuck your toes under. Lift your hips up. Find a downward facing dog. Try to settle, ground your heels back and down. Adjust your feet accordingly. Either spring slightly forward or keep them back. Lift your hip creases higher. Let your head go. Lift your armpits up and forward and breathe. And gazing forward, slowly step your feet to your hands. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold in. Then inhale, rise up. Arms out and up, gaze up, look up. And come back to standing. Bring your hands to your heart, gaze over your fingertips. Set an intention for your practice if you have not done so. An intention is a word, a thought, a prayer, a need, a desire that comes deep from within your heart, not something that has been expressed for you to believe, just what you feel, what's your core belief. And if it's a need or a desire or a feeling of joy, release it, trust in the process. Anjane Mudra, bring your hands to your heart. But your palms are just left open, so there's a little space in your heart. Space for transformation, for possibilities. Breathing. And then inhale, arms up, gaze up, look up, exhale, reach forward, fold forward. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, back into your high plank position. Hold your plank. Make the adjustments that we talked about. If they served your plank, lift the hips if you need to. Drop the hips when you feel capable of doing so. Try it, see what happens. Drop the hips. If your lower back feels too much pain or a pinching action in the lower back, then lift the hips. Take a few breaths here and then drop the hips. Now lower your knees down, tops of the feet down. Keep a long spine so you're drawing your elbows back, your chest forward, and come all the way to the ground. Maybe adjust your hands back slightly, reach to the tops of the feet, and inhale into your cobra. Now move from your hands and knees and shift back into a child's pose. Breathing deeply. And rising back up to your hands and knees, tuck your toes, and lift your hips up and back. Downward facing dog. Down dog, your fingers are spread wide. Notice, do you tend to roll into the pinky edge side of your fingers? Notice if you can look at your palms and ground down on all four corners of your palm. So focus on your palm, not as much your fingers grounding, and see what happens. Maybe your wrists are straight forward, maybe they're reaching to the corners of your mat. Take one more breath. And then gaze forward, step forward with your inhale. Come into a half lift. Either hands grounded or hands to your shin. And then exhale, fold in. And rise up. Lengthen up, gaze up. And bring your hands back to your heart. So we'll take a lion's breath, take a deep inhale. And stick your tongue out, lift your chin, open your eyes wide, and say ha. Another lion's breath, inhale. One more inhale. And come back to standing, Samastitihi. Another sun salutation. Inhale, reach your arms up, feel the energy rise in the palms, feel the length in the spine. Gaze up, look up to your thumbs, and exhale, gently dive forward, reach for the ground. Inhale, half lift, and exhale, step it back into a high plank position for 3 breaths, for 1. 2, 3. And just drop your knees down, tops of the feet down. Draw elbows back, chest forward. Maybe this time hover. Hover over the mat for 3 breaths. 1, 2, 3. And press up into your cobra again, or upward facing dog with straight arms. Draw your belly in, shift your hips back into an active child's pose for 3, 2, and 1, and slowly roll to hands and knees, tuck your toes under, lift your hips up and back, downward facing dog. So inhale the right leg out behind you, 3-legged dog. Press into an invisible wall, reach for the heels. Ground through the hands and the feet equally. Stay here for 3 breaths. 1, 2, 3. And then take your right foot beside the left. Bend the left knee, and then 3-legged dog on the left side. So you're trying to keep your hips squared by just lifting your heel as high as your hips. And then grounding equally through your hands and your feet. For 3 breaths, for 1, 2, 3, and drop the left foot beside the right. Gaze forward. And slowly step your feet to your hands. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold it in. Trace the hands up the legs as you come up to standing. Take the arms up and over. Gaze up and bring your hands to heart center into a mountain pose, Anjali Mudra, at hands to your heart. So taking your left foot back, let's come right into crescent. Left foot back, back heel lifted. Now push to the back heel. So if you tend to have a bent knee in the back leg, see what happens when you draw your heel back and down and bend a little deeper into your front knee. So drive your front knee forward, but you don't want it to go beyond your heel. So you keep driving the knee forward. If that means allowing your front foot to slide forward slightly and allow that back heel to reach back a little further, and feel the gluteus medius engaging, drawing back, maybe taking the tailbone back towards the back heel. So the tailbone is moving back in that direction. And then reach your arms up and take 3 breaths here. Either bringing your palms together, arms open, or a little wider. Gaze down, out, or up for 3. So 1, 2, 3. Now gently, hands to the heart. So bend a little deeper into that front knee, and then shift that back heel forward to step you forward. Right? And then here we are back standing in mountain pose with our hands to our heart. Take a breath here. Now gently step the right leg back. You may take a little adjustment. So your back heel is over the ball of the back foot, and maybe you start out with that back knee bend, and then begin to bend deeper into the front knee. Again, we don't want the knee to go beyond the heel. So if you can bend deeper, you may need to find more length in your pose. Now start to straighten through this back leg, contracting the quad. So you can maybe, you'll notice you'll engage your buttocks muscle as you work your right heel back and down, engage the quad, finding strength. Your posture is your posture. It's going to look the way your body will allow it to be. Again, notice, is your mind stopping you, or is it your body sending you messages? Listen to what the body is saying, and then reach the arms up, gaze up, look up, and take 3 breaths for 1, 2, 3. Bring the hands to the heart, put a bend into the knee, the back knee, and maybe the front knee. And you start to notice, like you use that back heel to move you forward. And then come back to standing. Finding yourself standing in mountain pose with your hands to your heart. So from mountain pose, we're going to go into a tree pose. So we're seeing the mountains as we're floating in the ocean. And now we're getting a little closer to shore, and we're seeing the trees and the palm trees and all the other exotic trees along our travels. And taking the right foot either to the shin, the ankle, and feeling the structure of this tree pose. And maybe this feels good and solid and steady, even though there's a lot of wind around you right now, and there's a lot of rocking, and that is okay. And maybe take the foot below the knee and find the rocking and the waves, because you're still on your boat. And then maybe you can take the foot up, all the way up to the thigh, still grounded through your standing foot, so you're still feeling stable, even though there's a little bit of wave action going on here. And you're breathing deeply. And maybe then all of a sudden the winds come up, so you roll your arms up, and just as if you are a sail, you are blowing in the wind. You are noticing the trees around you, and you are becoming one with the trees. You are a tree right now. You're in tree pose, Vrikshasana. And then bringing your hands back to your heart, and just bringing your right foot beside your left. We're having fun today. We're approaching our practice with a different mindset, just being present to whatever comes in to our life as we are on this floating boat in the ocean, feeling safe, but yet open to all these lovely adventures and possibilities and knowing that some of them will feel better than others, and that is okay. It's not acting as though you're not feeling what you're feeling. It is being present with what you're feeling at this very moment. So taking your left foot either below the knee and staying here, or working it a little higher, and noticing how you approach it. Does it change the steadiness and the ease of each posture that we are creating? So you're a tree, you are seeing trees, you're becoming a tree. You're becoming grounded. You're becoming flexible. Just think of what a tree goes through outside, all the different elements, all the birds and all the animals that come to visit and stay and nest in their home. And they stay and then they leave. And the trees don't just crumble, they become stronger and wiser. And they connect through their roots. And they advise the trees around them what to expect so that they can also grow up to be big and strong. So we are a tree. Bring your hands to your heart and then gently come back to standing and release your hands by your side. Let's take a big step out to the long edge of the mat. Maybe you're already facing the long edge of the mat. If not, just step out to that long edge of the mat so that we can see each other. And just reach your arms out and lengthen out. So we're going to go into a nice deep forward fold, but the forward fold comes from lengthening out but staying connected within. So your back shoulders draw in, your abs draw in, your core is in. Let's just bring our hands to our waist and take a little bit of opening in the front body by lifting your chest up, and then lead with your chin. So you're going to use your hands to gently persuade your hips to draw back, and your chin is going to persuade your chest to lead you forward, and the crown of the head now is drawing forward, and you're just feeling the dynamics of the stretch. And maybe you come halfway down and you stay right here perhaps and take a few breaths, and then see what happens if you let your navel now draw you down. Think from your navel drawing you forward and down. Then draw your chin in and just feel what's happening in the body. And be okay with whatever it is. Try not to go back to the days of what was. Maybe just know that with each breath, you will be lengthening and strengthening your body. And the more length and strength you create, the more stability. And breathe. Now to come back up, we need to go up the way we came down. So very stable. Your feet are grounded and your chest lifts you up, and your navel now is drawing you forward. Maybe your chin is leading you forward. And then your knees are bending so that we don't put too much pressure on the knees. And you tuck the tail to lift yourself up. So again, yoga is not about finding pain so that you can endure more pain in your life. That's not what we're saying. So please don't confuse that with that reading. It's about finding places where you can settle and be able to accept the feelings that arise. And of course, if there's pain in the body, you listen to it and you make adjustments. You come out of it. If it's just a little bit of stress or strain or fear, then you stay with it and see if you can move past it. If you can't move past it, then you come out of that asana. Then it's just not the right time. Today will not be the right time for that. Okay, so I don't want to confuse you with what my messaging is in that reading. reach your arms out and take your right toes towards the back of the mat. Again, we're going to bend the knee so that it stays not past the heel. So that may mean adjusting the foot. And it may be just a slight bend. You're still a strong warrior. Your feet are grounded. You're still on that ship, so the boat is still rocking and the emotions are still there. So the knee can continue to move forward, but what happens is this right hip starts to roll back so that you don't have to adjust your foot. The hip comes back and then you push down through your inner thigh to go deeper. And breathe for 3, 2, 1. Now straighten that right leg, take your feet parallel and point your left toes to the front of the mat and then start to sink down. Once you get this left hip back, if then you need to adjust the length of your stance so that the knee does not go beyond the heel, then you would do so. The back foot is grounded, the outer edge of the back foot is grounded. Gaze to your left fingertips in a very strong warrior pose for 3, 2, and 1, and straighten that left leg and take your feet parallel. Maybe heel toe your feet slightly a few times, and then taking your hands to your waist, inhale, exhale. Now inhale your arms out and bring your hands back behind you and just interlace your palms or reach for your elbows. I'm going to go with my elbows today, or taking the outside of my arms. And then inhale, let your elbows draw down and your shoulders slightly back. Breathe deeply into the back of the heart. Feel your rib cage expanding out to the side. Inhale. And exhale, fold forward. Let your head go. Let your neck lengthen. And take 3 breaths here. And drawing your crown forward, lift yourself up, extend your arms out. Now taking your toes so they're pointing towards the front of the mat, square your hips and reach your arms up. So your back toes are drawn in, your hip points are squared, your belly is lifted, and you're just taking a bit of a back stretch. So reach your hands back towards the back wall, but keep your pelvis drawing forward and find this stretch in your upper back. And then keep your arms by your ears, or it's okay if they get ahead of your ears, and just reach forward. Reach forward and bring your hands down. Lead your chin out and over that left leg. So pushing back into the back heel. Keep your heart open and just melt out and over that left leg to a point of a nice, deep, satisfying stretch for 3 breaths for 3, 2, and 1. And gently drawing this Parsvottanasana, lifting yourself up, bringing your arms up with you. Keep your arms lifted and just pivot around. Pivot around. Now you're facing the back of your mat. Your hips are squared. And then again, lift up. Maybe take your arms back. Lift your heart. Lift your gaze. Take a deep breath. And leading with your heart, with your chin, with your sternum, with your arms, just bowing down, gracefully coming down to the ground. Draw that right hip back. So you want to be loose in the hips. Don't become tight in the hips. Be able to move around through the hips. Maybe roll through the hips. So so that you can then lengthen through the legs and let your chin go, your head go. Breathe deeply for 3, 2, 1. And then take your gaze forward, your chest forward, your navel forward, your feet grounded. Reach up and lengthen up, so don't round. Open through the heart, slight cow action, slight back bend. Open through the heart. Bring your hands to your heart. Pivot your feet around to be parallel. Pivot on your heels to take your feet towards the front of your mat. Release your hands down and step your back foot forward. Inhale, reach arms up. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, back into your plank. Drop your knees. Elbows back into your chaturanga. Inhale, cobra or up dog. Lift your hips up and back. Coming into a downward dog, and then child's pose. Draw your chin to your knees. So if you went into your downward facing dog first, you would have been here, and then drop your knees, feet together, hips to heels, and breathe. And lifting yourself up. So we're going to go into fire logs, where your front shin is going to align with the long edge of the mat or the front edge of the mat, and you're going to align your top shin. So for many of us, this is a struggle. This is where a lot of negativity comes in to our thought patterns, and a lot of reasons why we cannot accomplish this. It's like the mind just starts ticking away at every reason why. And yes, if I had a pillow or a block and I was going to stay here for 5 minutes, I would probably put my knee and my shin. For some people, the knee drops right down, the hips are very open, there's no damage to their knees, and they say, I don't know what the problem is, and that's God bless you, right? It's like, yes, that's what we want, but if that's not what we have, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means life has evolved you into where you are now, and you're in a perfect place. But even if your knee and your legs are not parallel to the long edge of the mat or the short edge of the mat, you're still doing, there's a lot of opening going on. There's a lot of opening through the hip. You might even support that opening of the hip. Maybe encourage it, right? So you roll it out, perhaps. It's going to see eventually if you just keep rolling that leg out, then eventually, voila, before you know, your knee becomes closer to the foot below because you've allowed it, you've pinpointed the areas that need a little more love and care, and then you give that love and care, and here we are. We're where we wanted to be. And is it comfortable? Maybe not. Maybe not that awesome of a feeling, but does it hurt? No. So that's okay. Take one more breath. Take your hands back behind you, and then change out those fire logs. So again, usually you can get the first leg down without a problem. I lifted my left hip, and my right knee and my ankle are pretty much aligned with the edge of the mat. So now the trick is to get the heel above, on top of the knee, and to start to work this alignment. It's as if we had bound our ankles together and tied them together. So if you looked down, you would see a perfect triangular pose. Again, for many of us, this is not going to happen. For this side is easier than my other side. The other side, my knee was way up high, and I had to just keep encouraging my hip to open, my legs to open, I had to really massage that knee because there was a little pain going on there. But with just a little bit of massage, I noticed that the pain dissolved. Again, I think sometimes it's anticipation of the pain we're going to feel, but then we go into this place, it's like, I guess, here we are in the boat and we've decided to jump into the ocean because we're in a calm place and there's people all around you that are going to pull you out of the ocean. So you're going to jump into that water, and the thought of it is just like, oh my God, I cannot do this. But there's so many safety nets around you. There's so many people that are ready to get you out of the water. There's a raft right there, and there's this huge lifeguard that could, protect you in an instant. And you can see the water is so blue, and when you look down, you actually see the sand. So, but it's deep enough. It's just the water's so clear. It's so clear you can see where you're going. So you jump into the water feet first, and it's amazing. So the fear of jumping in for me would be like, I can't do this. But then you do it, and it's like, oh my gosh, I want to do it again. So sometimes that's what fear is all about. Fear is exactly that. It's unwarranted. So staying here, now we've been here for a few breaths, we're going to come out of it. So just as slowly as we went into it, we come out of it and come back to our hands and knees. And just drop your hips back to your heels again and take a full breath. And come back to your hands and knees. Cross at your ankles, and let's just lay down on our back. Come to our back. Reach your arms up and over your head. Stretch it long. And then go to that L shape. Keep your arms up and over your head, and just take your feet towards the sky. And just breathe. Don't worry about how many counts of breath. Just stay here with your legs higher than your heart. Maybe start to tap into the feeling. I love the feeling, the tingling, the circulation, especially for my legs. I really need my legs up the wall a lot. Keep the circulation moving. Keep the body healthy. Keep the heart rate lower. And just stay here and breathe. Hug your knees in, or keep your legs up high, or take your feet to an ottoman. You would be here if you had an ottoman, just resting them on an ottoman. Just bend the knees, or hug the knees in, and stay here and just breathe without me counting, just breathing. That's all you're doing. Bringing your feet down to the mat and extend your legs long and come into Shavasana. And feel yourself floating on the water. Visualize the clouds overhead. The sky is blue, the air is cool, the air is warm, the air is windy, regardless of the temperature, we are grounded and we are floating and having an adventure of a lifetime, taking in every breath of air, feeling sensations of pure joy, feeling sensations of pure frustration and fear, just feeling just being. And now we are still. You begin to feel somebody tapping you, saying, it's time to wake up. Move your fingertips and your toes. Reach your arms up and over your head, stretch out. It's time to wake up. Say, wait a minute, I've been more awake than I have in years. Draw your knees in. Roll to your right side. Use your hands to lift yourself up. Maybe you started in Sukhasana, a comfortable seat. So go back to that space, maybe just crossed at the ankles. Sometimes this is Sukhasana right here. Take a deep breath in. And exhale, just let it go. The light in me sees and honors the light that lives within each and every one of you. Thank you for coming to play and practice yoga with me today. Namaste.